Welcome, everyone. The event is now live. John, please take it away.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of our ongoing editorial webinar series, Coffee Talk. Each hour-long, information-packed episode organized by the hardworking folks at Redmond Channel Partner features the observations and insights of an independent expert on a wide range of tech industry topics. Many thanks to the underwriting sponsor of this episode, Huntress, provider of a managed security platform for small and mid-sized businesses and the managed service providers that support them. Without their support, this event would not be possible. And thanks to you for joining us. I'm John K. Waters, Editor-in-Chief of the Converge 360 Group of 1105 Media, and I'll be your moderator. Today's topic is Phishing Awareness Training 101 for Partners. And our lead presenter is technologist, creator of compelling content, and senior resultant, Howard M. Cohen. But before we get started here, just a bit of housekeeping. This episode is being recorded for later access. Keep an eye out for an email with a link to that recording. It'll be coming your way in the next few days. We'll make some time during the talk for questions. Please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. We'll do our best to get to all of them. Our sponsor has provided some extra resources you won't want to miss. They're available now on your console. And as a small thank you to the first 200 attendees who stick with us to the end of this Coffee Talk, we'll be sending you a $5 gift certificate to Starbucks. It's a cup of joe to go with the info. Now I'd like to introduce our first presenter. Howard M. Cohen has spent more than 40 years in the IT industry. During that time, he has held senior executive positions in many of the top channel partner organizations, and he currently writes for and about IT and the IT channel. He is a sought-after speaker, an insightful observer of the technology landscape, and one of our favorite presenters. You're in for a great session, folks. Take it away, Howard.
Thank you very much, John. And boy, I love that cup of joe to go with the info. It's one of my favorite things. Okay, welcome to Phishing 101 for partners. And no, for those of you who think we're going to talk about cutting bait and tackle, and nothing like that. We're going to do something completely different. Okay, so those of you who have attended my sessions in the past know that I always like to begin with a word of the day. This session will be no different. And the word of the day actually comes from my favorite, hands down favorite book. If you have not yet read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing tome. And also, once you've read it, you really need to go out and teach it to others. Amazing way of learning what Dr. Covey had to share with us. Okay, well, the word of the day comes from this title, and of course, bet you've guessed it already. The word is effective. We're going to talk about being effective. In this case, effective at securing our networks and our data from phishing attacks. Now, that means we need to talk about security. And security, of course, the best metaphor I can think of is that security is a chain. And there are things we need to do at every link in that chain because security is only as good as the weakest link in the chain. So let's talk about the links, and let's talk about how we make sure they're effective. So we're talking about the chain of data and network security so that we can put phishing into the context of our overall effort. So the first step in the chain, way at the other end, is data. Now you may be wondering, if it's data, why am I showing you bacon? Well, because everybody loves bacon. And the only thing better than bacon is more bacon. And the same is true of data. Many people say that data is the new bacon because everybody loves data. And the only thing better than data is more data. The fact is, though, that everything we do at every link in the chain is ultimately meant to protect the data in a variety of ways. So step one is the data itself. Data is typically kept in storage. a wide variety of storage devices, Winchester drives like these, but there are others. And we need to protect those drives because that's where the data lives. And so protection is needed there too. In turn, those servers are accessed, that storage, those storage devices are accessed by servers which put the data to use. They may be file servers, application servers, communication servers, all kinds of peripheral servers. So servers access the storage to get at the data. In turn, they send data to applications that are running on them. And they serve that data to them, and they take that data back from them and return it back to storage. We need security at this level as well. Applications must be secured. In today's world, a lot of computing takes place elsewhere. And so we start sending the data out. We send the data out through routers. And the routers determine where the data is meant to go and send it on its way. Before data comes back in, of course, it's treated to antivirus and anti-malware software. We make sure that there are no Trojans, no worms, or other horrible sounding things lurking inside the data trying to get into our network. And again, this is data coming back in. Another thing that's more concerned about data coming in is the firewall. There are many people who think that this is the be-all, end-all totality of security. Oh, we've got a firewall. We're secure. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I suspect there is nobody in this audience who doesn't know that. So the firewall really is meant to separate you and your local area network inside from the wild, woolly world of the wide area network outside. And it sets up filters and rules to make sure that only permitted data gets through. Firewall. Before users can get to the firewall to try to gain access through the firewall, they're going to first encounter network access control. Network access control has two fundamental functions. First, it determines whether or not the person who's trying to gain access is who they really say they are. Second, they have to determine whether or not the device that that person is using is what it says it is and is configured properly so that it can indeed access the network securely. Users, as they're coming in, also confront multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication has been around for a long time. Used to be that we would get a 6-digit number on a little key fob, and that 6-digit number would be added to the end of our password and would let us into the network for only 1 minute. And then we would have to go get a new 6-digit number. Today, we all get our numbers, whether they're 6 digits, 4 digits, 8 digits, 12 digits, however many digits they are, we now tend to get them on our smartphones, making it much easier. Also, there are applications like the one you see in this slide, like Microsoft Authenticator, which further automate and make the process a little more formal, useful, and part of Microsoft's quest to rid the world of passwords, which may happen someday. Before anything gets even close to the network, it's going to run smack into your intrusion prevention system. Again, this is data coming back into your network, not necessarily emerging from your network. Your intrusion prevention system is really looking for trouble. It's scanning the area around you to see if anything's coming toward you, anything that might be bad, anything that might be nasty, anything that might hurt your data or your network. And it does exactly what it says. It prevents them from intruding. We have intrusion detection systems, intrusion protection systems, but ultimately, everybody seems to settle in on the idea that what we really want to do is prevent intrusion. And so that's what we focus on. Now, of course, once we get past the intrusion prevention system, we now find ourselves in the Internet, a massive collection of copper, fiber optic, wireless, and other media that conduct data of all types all over the world. Our network is connected ultimately to the Internet, and so are those who are trying to access our network. They connect to the network using endpoint devices. Now, an endpoint device may be as simple as a smartphone. It may be a tablet that thinks it's a laptop, or a laptop that thinks it's a tablet, like the Surface Pro. It could be a desktop computer. It could even be servers, printers, and other peripherals. Anything that accesses the network is an endpoint. And endpoints need particular protection because they are the most vulnerable part of any network. They are where it's easy to get in and out because that's what you're supposed to do there, is get in and out. And so we pay special attention to how we protect our endpoints. Now, finally, we started with the data, put the data into storage, took it out with servers, sent it through the router, sent it through the intrusion prevention system, sent it through all the other layers, through the Internet, to the endpoint devices, and now finally it arrives. And it arrives at the most difficult part of any network to control or manage. Ask any engineer and they will tell you there is nothing tougher to manage than end users. This is where the greatest vulnerability lies. Why is that? In many ways, you'll see it's obvious. First of all, there are people out there who have figured out human engineering. And by that, I mean coming up with plans that use the nature of a human being to create the vulnerability that allows you into the network. And there are many. People are famously fallible. For one thing, they're easily distracted. If a sufficiently attractive member of the opposite gender passes by their desk, good chance they'll be distracted. And they won't be looking at the screen, and they won't be paying attention to what's going on right in front of them. There are other distractions. There was an eclipse yesterday. Got everybody away from their desks. So there are many ways in which a human being can be distracted. But even if they're not, they're subject to mood. Everybody gets moody once in a while. They came in after a fight with their spouse or their kids or somebody else, and they can't get over it. They can't get past it. So they're sitting there feeling really badly. And you can hear it, and you can feel it, and unfortunately it turns up in them missing a step here or there, or flipping the wrong switch, or giving the wrong command, or checking the wrong box. There's a million of them. Which means that people overall are inconsistent. You cannot count on them to do the same thing the same way twice. And of course, people are unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do. This is the reason that human engineers love targeting humans as their way into your network, because basically humans are easily fooled, much more easily than digital devices. In fact, recent studies show that fully three-quarters of breaches involve some human element. People were involved somewhere along the line in three-quarters of breaches. So, no surprise there. And of course, what they're fooled by most easily are what we lovingly refer to as phishing emails. By the way, notice, and I forgot to point it out, that when we get to the end user, the link of chain becomes a hook, because here's where the phishing is going to go on. And it takes the form, usually, of an email. And so maybe they get an email from Netflix. I recently saw a version of this that just had that big, epic N at the top. Didn't spell out Netflix, just N. And the same thing. Your credit card expired. So they can't get paid. They want you to update your credit card. Okay. They make it easy. Just click Update Account Now. Unfortunately, this message is not from Netflix. It is from somebody else. And when you click that Update Account Now button, you're going to open a door that allows bad actors to get into your network and attack your data and do all kinds of horrible things to your data, some of which you won't be able to recover from unless you pay them an awful lot of money. And so, yes, phishing typically leads to ransomware. Okay. So what's the easy way around this? Well, the good news is there is an easy way. When you get something like this, do not click the button. Doctor, it hurts when I go like this. Don't go like that. Don't click the button. Instead, go to Netflix. Go to a browser, enter netflix.com. Go to Netflix, go to your Netflix account, and see if your credit card is indeed expired, or if you even owe a payment. You may find that you don't. And then you know that this was a bogus message. The easiest way to stay safe is to try to avoid clicking buttons like that. Just that simple. Here's another one. This time it's from a bank. And if you've ever banked with Citibank, you'll recognize the colors. Those look like Citibank colors. That looks just like the Citibank logo. But I would call your attention to the top where we can see the URL that got us here. And although it says Citibank.com, it's followed by a lot of other things. .com is not the end of the URL. In fact, in the case of the first part, triproducos.com.brazil is probably the domain this is coming from, not Citibank. And so you need to look at that. You need to interrogate the URL and make sure that it's coming from where you think it's coming from. A phishing email may not even come from the outside. It may look like it comes from inside your company. In this case, it's from your boss. Jane, I'm extremely angry with you. Uh-oh. Jane sees that coming from her CEO, John Smith, and she gets upset. You know, our supplier didn't get paid? Why would that happen? Listen, I want you to make the payment right now and send it to so-and-so immediately. Now, if Jane is thinking about it, he knows that she knows where to send payments. He would never tell her where to send payments. And so immediately she kind of knows this has got to be bogus. And so hopefully she goes back and checks it with him before she does a thing. But it's very easy for your own CEO to be sending you an email, ostensibly, that isn't coming from them at all. It's a complete fake. Your CEO may have left the door to his office open last night, and he may have left his computer logged in. And anybody can walk in and use his computer to send that kind of an email, and it'll look very genuine. So, got to be careful. This one comes from Microsoft, and it says that your password has expired. We've all slammed into that. Your password expired. We need a new password. Just when you were finally remembering the old password. But again, good news. They make it easy. They give you a button. This button is blue, and it says keep password. I don't have to change my password. I can just click this button. Do not click the button. If you hover over the button, you'll see the URL that's under it. And you'll see that it doesn't say Microsoft anywhere. This is not from Microsoft. And clicking that button is not going to take you to anything having to do with Microsoft. Don't click the button. If you think it might be real, go to your Microsoft account and check to see if when you get there, it's asking you to change your password. Another from Microsoft, and it uses the magic word we all dread, update. We all know what update means. And you have to update because otherwise you're not going to be able to log in. Oh my God. And once again, we have a button. And it's going to let us access something that'll keep us from losing our access. And once again, I call your attention to the from line. Okay? And it's showing you this is not from Microsoft. It's from somebody at mail.com. Why would Microsoft be sending from somebody else's mail service? So we know immediately it's not from Microsoft. But even if we don't, we play it safe. And we go to live.com or Microsoft.com and we check our Microsoft account. If there's no message there, this is a bogus message. Even though the logo looks real, it's not. And funny thing, because Microsoft, excuse me, is in such wide use by so many people, it turns out that Microsoft is the most frequently impersonated brand of all. In 2022, it was slightly more than Facebook. Today, much more. And so when you see something from Microsoft, be extra careful because more people are faking Microsoft than faking anything else. Okay, so we've seen what happens when we get a phishing email. And again, why does it stay so prevalent? It's easy for the criminal to hijack your account. That's what phishing does for you. They can spoof your account and fool you that way. And spoofing, I mean, instead of using Google as Google.com, Google is spelled G00G1E.com. Most people won't notice that unless they're really looking for it. So the hint is, get everybody really looking for it. It's all too easy for it to really hurt. Your message may come in the form of a fake alert. Alerts tend to get everybody uptight. Like, uh-oh, something's wrong. And so you want to move on it really quickly and resolve the alert before it becomes an outage. But it may not be real. And so you've got to take the moment to look and see, is this really an alert from the system or is this somebody spoofing it? It may be a fake invoice. Somebody sends you an invoice that says you have to pay an amount. I have to tell you, once long ago, I sent an invoice to my CFO just to see what would happen. The CFO paid it. The company I sent it from didn't exist. It's completely made up. And still the CFO paid it. And so I went and sat down at her desk and had a long, meaningful conversation. be aware people are sending fake invoices all the time. Similarly, fake surveys. We all get surveys all the time. Some of them promise to send us an Amazon $100 gift card or something like that. Don't be fooled. Look at the URL. Investigate. Make sure that it's coming from who it says it's coming from. You may want to look them up and call them to see if they indeed sent you a survey. We saw a bunch of fake notifications about credit cards failing and other stuff. It's all too easy for these notifications to fool you. All of these things, you see how many there are. There's so many ways that people can phish you. And all of them contain dangerous links that will open the door to all kinds of malfeasance. They contain malicious attachments. And if you open one of those attachments, same thing. You're opening the door so that a cyber criminal can come through, enter your network, and get right to your data. And when they get there, they may corrupt your data. They may outright steal your data. Just copy it so you don't even know they did it. Or they might encrypt your data and not give you the encryption key unless you pay them. And that's when you receive the most harrowing message of all, a ransomware note. If you've never received one, God bless you. You're either fortunate or smart, or both. Nothing shakes you up more than receiving one of these. They're downright frightening. And so I recommend that you do your utmost to avoid letting anybody in, which means don't click that link. Don't open that attachment. Don't open the door for them. Other reasons why phishing remains so prevalent is that it's cheap and it's easy to do. And if it's still too tough for you, no problem, get a kit. Yeah, you can go out and get phishing and ransomware kits. You can get ransomware as a service. You don't have to know a thing. You don't have to do a thing. Just choose how you want to target, who you want to target, and how much money you want to ask for. Frightening, isn't it? They're now starting to add artificial intelligence into the mix so that they come up with even cleverer ways to fool you. And so what you're seeing are fake emails. They're even more convincing than ever before. All of these are meant ultimately to achieve credential theft. They want a way into your network. They want a password. They want something that will get them there. And they're no longer depending only on email. They're now sending QR codes. You may get a QR code that, hey, open up your camera, take a picture, and open the door to horrible things. And so there's QR code phishing. There's also now phishing, voice phishing. In other words, they're phishing over the phone. You get a call. And they ask you certain questions that will give them what they need to know. They may say that, we got a warning that your account has been breached. Give us your password. Don't fall for that. And then there's smishing. Smishing is, instead of email, they're using text. Yeah, texts. So almost nothing is sacred anymore. You may get any kind of message that may be terrible. You've got to become very adept at figuring it out. Now, the overwhelming majority of phishing attacks are broad. Anybody who will fall for it, that's who they're going after. Sometimes they go after a specific person. That's what's referred to as spear phishing. And all of it opens the door to ransomware. So you may be wondering, how do we combat phishing? Well, there is software. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is some anti-phishing software that detects unusual behaviors, people doing things they wouldn't ordinarily be doing, and blocking out known malicious domains. But honestly, it's hardly enough, not nearly enough. Really, the thing that is going to spell the difference for you is security awareness training. You're going to have to keep on training your people and training them again and reminding them and refreshing them. It's got to be a constant flow because it's all too easy to become complacent. Teach your employees to spot cyber threats the way we spotted some of them today, to spot social engineering, to spot ransomware. This will minimize your organization's exposure to cyber threats, and it will also help you maintain regulatory compliance with cyber insurance stipulations. Remember, regulatory compliance is not security, and security is not compliance. They're two separate things. You can be very secure and not be nearly compliant. You could be very compliant and not be nearly secure. With that, we're going to introduce you to somebody who can tell you a lot more about how to combat phishing. But first, John, I think we have some questions.
We do. We have a couple right here. Let's get right to this. Our first question from Arnie, who's wondering, Howard, user training seems to be the best way to prevent successful phishing, but that doesn't sound very reliable. What's the best way to limit the damage if they do get through?
Well, I guess the answer to that would come in figuring out what are the consequences, right? So if they do get through, most likely they're going to encrypt your data, and you won't have the key. Now that becomes unimportant. That becomes unimportant if you have another copy of the data. If you made a second live copy that has a restore point not too terribly long ago, it's very current, and you can restore it quickly. So to me, data backup is the best strategy to put into place to backstop anything else you do about phishing and ransomware.
Okay, here's a question from Eduardo, who's wondering, how is AI's role in phishing attacks complicating our ability to minimize or manage and control attacks?
One of the things that AI can do is it can anticipate. It can assess the activities of a person and determine what it thinks they're going to do next. Classic phishing didn't have that. Couldn't anticipate how the human was going to try to counter. Now they can. And so you may find yourself dueling with an AI. I don't know about you, but I don't have my AI sword yet. So it kind of worries me.
Okay, we've got one from Lynn. Hi, Lynn, regular attendee.
Hello, Lynn.
And I'm going to ask you the second part. You touched on this during your presentation. What are the potential consequences of falling victim to a phishing attack? Maybe you want to expand on that just a little.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Sorry, I'm talking too fast here. What are the potential consequences of falling victim to a phishing attack?
Okay, well, again, the target, Lynn, is your data. They're after your data.
Mm-hmm.
They may want to just deprive you of it. Or they may want to encrypt it so you have to pay them to give you the key. And of course, they could do that over and over and over again. So that's worrisome. Without your data, you can have a really hard time doing business. You can ruin your reputation. I once had a legal client say to me, the most important thing is to protect the face of the firm. And a firm that loses its data could very easily lose its client's data. And so that's not a good thing. So there's lots of consequences. The easiest way to make sure that you're as protected as possible is to combine user training and maybe even user conditioning, making it very painful for them. I tell people all the time, go phishing yourself. Send phishing emails to your own people. See who falls for them. Mm-hmm. Make those people's lives miserable. Sounds terrible. But really, it should hurt. It hurts the company. It should hurt the person. And the other part of it, as I said before, have a recent backup, as recent as possible, as quickly available for restoration as possible. Many recommend an air-gapped copy. In other words, a copy that's not accessible over the network. That's fine, as long as that air-gapped copy is on a machine that's accessible to you, so you can get the media and bring it back to the network when you need to restore. That, to me, is your best hedge against whatever consequences come along.
Thank you, Howard. Now it seems like a good time to introduce our second speaker, Dima Kumetz. Sorry, Dima. Principal Product Manager at Huntress. Dima has more than 20 years of experience in cybersecurity with a focus on helping managed service providers protect their customers. He currently manages security awareness training at Huntress Labs. You're in for another great session, folks. Dima, please take it away.
Hey, thanks so much for the intro, and thanks so much, Howard, for that great talk. So Howard covered a lot of the why and maybe some of the what, and I want to really get into the how to implement a security awareness training that works with Huntress SAT. And to start things off, I want to kind of go back in our industry and touch on what we used to think of as the most important thing for security awareness training, engaging and informative. And this was sort of the knee-jerk response of coming out of the late 90s, early aughts era, where we had these boring once-a-year lectures. And in a lot of cases, the industry overcorrected and went to the world of comedy traffic school, where yes, it checks the box. But our goal isn't to check the box and just engage and get a positive survey response at the end. Our goal is to change behavior and make our organizations more resilient and more secure. So that's where I think we really have to shift our paradigm to go away from engaging and informative and into memorable, relatable, and Howard's word of the day, effective. We strive to make sure that all of our learners are able to remember that content from the training, that they can relate to it and they can actually implement it. And that effective piece is being able to recall it and use it when there's an actual attack going on. So how do we do that, both from the Huntress side and from the overall side? On the memorable side, let me start off with the kind of big keynote answer, which is storytelling. Let me explain storytelling in two different ways. One is that there's a little part of our brain called the hippocampus, and it effectively connects the characters, timelines, and plot sequences into something that is far more easier for our brain to recall. And experiments have shown that 93% of students who were instructed to use a story were able to recall versus 13% of students who were just given facts and figures. Another stat that humans are 22 times more likely to remember facts when they're woven into narrative. And all this stuff that I just told you is probably going to go into one ear and out the other. Let me instead tell you a story about two cavemen. And these cavemen, one told the other that, hey, there's danger in that cave. And the other caveman, who could internalize the story and learn from it, avoided the cave and didn't become Tiger Chow and passed on the genes of being able to recall stories to us, their modern offspring, many, many generations apart. Think to yourself, is it easier for me to remember the 20 times more likely stat or the 93% versus 13 versus caveman didn't become Tiger Chow, and that's why I have a hippocampus today? So we take this approach and really have turned it into a science in terms of creating storylines that are effective for recall for security awareness training. All of our content follows a tried and true structure, which if you've watched a movie or seen a TV show or read a book lately, you're familiar with this. This is a 3-act structure of a setup, confrontation where action rises, and then resolution. Doesn't matter if it's a Marvel movie or a rom-com. This is kind of how we have internalized these stories in a structure that's been tried and true. And with us, that means starting with introducing characters and creating a setup, making you feel like you can relate to them. There's an attack that happens, and this is a relevant and relatable attack. And then a final act 3 where there's incident is maximized, and then there are consequences, which is where folks are able to recall the actual outcome of having a phishing attack or social engineering attack, etc. But what I'd love to do is, rather than continuing to talk, is to show. And rather than watching a full episode together, I'm going to do a quick speed run with some freeze frames that I've screenshotted. And we're going to start off with the storytelling applied in terms of social engineering. Now, Howard called this social engineering and human engineering, and you'll see some of the same tactics that he talked about. But in the end, this is really when somebody tries to manipulate a victim into divulging information for some nefarious outcome. In our content, everything happens in this world of Curriculaville. If you've ever watched The Simpsons and know that there's a Springfield where there's repeat characters and repeat callbacks to Moe's Tavern, etc., very similar kind of feel. And also similar to The Simpsons, you don't have to start at episode 1 and progress through it. It's just more of an enrichment as you continue to live in this world. And the main anti-hero antagonist of Curriculaville is a little girl named Dee Dee. Now, I'm sure we all have that kid in the neighborhood who's got more smarts than perhaps sense of right and wrong, and will stop at nothing at getting their way. Well, Dee Dee's that kid, except instead of egging somebody's house, she takes hacker tactics and uses them to get her the ends to what she desires. In this case, Dee Dee, like a little kid or little girl would, is super into this teen heartthrob, sort of Justin Bieber-esque character named Josh. And Josh has a concert coming up next weekend. But when Dee Dee tries to get tickets, they're all sold out. But Dee Dee sees that her friend Harper's dad posted on social media that her dad managed to buy tickets. So what does Dee Dee do? She goes down to her dungeon and starts doing some OPSEC. Now, it's fairly easy for us to find information about our victims on social media, which is exactly what Dee Dee does. She goes online, she finds the email address of her friend's dad, and now what she does is she sends a phishing email with a strong sense of urgency. Failure to confirm this order will result in loss of tickets, but she's demanding the order number, billing address, and last four of credit card, which is what she would need to take over ownership of the tickets. She does this during the busiest time of the day, and Chris, the dad, is very busy, so he just passes the information along, which allows Dee Dee to then call the ticket agency, get the ticket reissued to her. She can show up to the concert early and make sure that she gets in, and then when Harper tries to get in with the ticket that her dad bought, turns out that ticket was already scanned, and Harper is sitting there sad on the bench. Of course, along the way, learners also see some helpful hints like slow down and what impersonation defense looks like, as well as quiz questions. What we're really going for here is creating this memorable, relatable, and effective through relatable situations. We're not telling your learners that North Korea is trying to hack them. We're explaining that you have something of value and other people want to come get it. We've created these memorable characters and used real-world hacker tactics, and lastly, created believable consequences. And when we combine all of this, we're better able to have learners who can recall this happen rather than doesn't matter if it's a lecture or like an action movie talking about the government hackers and super duper stuff. This is something that they can actually bring in and reuse internally. We also very deliberately bait water cooler banter. I don't know if it's water cooler, a coffee machine at your office, or a Zoom or Teams call, but having that organic communication take place. I don't know how many times I've heard people talk about, oh yeah, my employees can't stop talking about how Didi is insert 4-letter word here, and how they hate Didi and they really want to defend against Didi. Or even planting the joke about Josh and how they want Josh tickets, or hopefully talking about how they feel so bad for Harper. And the reason that we want all of this is, well, one, we want people to understand how the tradecraft works, but also to generate that fear of missing out, that FOMO, for not watching their training or not being in it. And then lastly, having that organic communication, having that, oh, Didi's always out to get me, creating a healthy sense of suspicion of, is this email safe, or is this Didi trying to steal something from me? Because once again, yeah, we can all think about some malicious little kid coming after us versus a random, unbelievable hacker type that is allegedly out there but feels very abstract to learners. Now, the next part I want to talk about is simulated phishing, which is also something that Howard touched on as something that we want to do. And I think the most important thing that we want to get out of this simulated phishing is that every time an employee opens their inbox, we want them to have a sense of, this is not a safe place. There are likely going to be issues here. And I want to look at everything with a sense of suspicion, because it could be my employer trying to test me, or it could be real cyber criminals. And it's much easier to know for certainty that there are going to be simulated phishes in my inbox than that my email filtering software might fail once in a while and real malicious emails will come in. And the things that I want folks to remember and how to implement this effectively, it is to use that relevant tradecraft, which we'll touch on in a sec. But also making sure that the delivery is staggered, so you don't have everybody getting the same email at exactly 9:31 a.m. on a Monday and saying, oh, we found the one email that the boss sent out. Everything else is presumed to be safe. And lastly, keeping the content dynamic. And in terms of the relevant tactics, we do have this, or a number of scenarios that are these QR codes, which Howard touched on as QR code phishing or quishing, which do lead to simulated Microsoft login pages to test people and to keep them from doing this in the real world, as well as things like dynamic elements within the actual setup, which is to say, not everybody's going to get the LinkedIn simulated email from the same person. They're going to get different photos, different names, different locations. But what good is great content if you can't manage it, right? Spending too much time on this is the thing that hurts. And just to do a very quick overview, it takes us less than 3 minutes to onboard a customer, and our partners spend less than 3 minutes to onboard folks. And there's zero ongoing maintenance. You don't have to do the care and feeding. I would have done this live, but was warned not to tempt the demo demons. So just to quickly blast through the screenshots, you give the account a name. You should already have the co-branding for the reports and for the sender info pre-configured, or you can customize that right then and there. You can add admins for co-managed situations and specify where monthly automated email reports will go. And then just check the box, and Huntress will manage the learning assignments for you, make sure that relevant learning is assigned. Same thing for phishing. And for new employees that come on, new learner essentials, where their first day, they'll get that intro to cybersecurity and phishing training before they join the rest of the class. And from here, you can synchronize learners with Microsoft. All this takes is just doing an OAuth login, checking the boxes, and we will do the sync for you, and we will keep it updated nightly, including the ability to ignore unlicensed accounts like photocopiers and shared inboxes. So just to kind of sum things up, we got the daily learner syncs, new learner essentials, the monthly assignments, and submitted phishing that we would manage all for you, along with robust reporting that goes out showing you who's behind on training, who's interacted with the messages, and what that interaction looked like. And this is how you get to a training program that admins love, learners love, and hackers hate, because it actually works and because it actually means that your employees are keeping up with it, engaged with it, and internalizing and remembering the lessons. Now, I do want to encourage everybody to take a test drive. We do 21-day full featured trials, and also work with our partners to give them internal licenses to use with their own employees. I think we have some URLs and some things in the resources section, but if you just go to huntress.com/trial, you can give it a try today with a full library of both the training and the phishing, and really see how it works with your employees. And with that, I'd love to move on to Q&A. Annie, do we have any questions?
Awesome. Yeah, we've got a few here. Thanks, Dima. I want to let people know that there's still time to type questions into the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to get to all of them. Let's start with this one from Arnie, who's wondering, what about customers with specialized compliance requirements like HIPAA and PCI?
Great question. Those are all included with the package, and we do have a hippo training with the HIPAA hippo as our main character, who takes a photo of their cat on a laptop while it's showing PII and does unintentional disclosure, as well as episodes for PCI, SOC 2, and GDPR. So if you have folks that need to take that specialized compliance stuff, it's there for you, and we're ready to go.
The hippo. Love it. So we've got one here from Zeke, who's wondering, how can MSPs differentiate their security awareness training programs?
Yeah, so great question. I think part of it is just highlighting that this is all managed by the people who are also working in the SOC and who are seeing the real world threats. And I think the other part is and of course, making sure that you use the branding so that the notifications come from the MSP and not from Huntress. We want to make sure that you all shine. But we also do include in the product the ability to create custom content. So you can upload video, insert quiz questions, put in slides with information. You can even reuse the backgrounds and the characters from our content library, and create your own customized content for things like everything from, here are my tips for new laws within our region that impact customers, all the way to, how do you use the new desk phones, or how do you get tech support from your MSP? That is something that you can create, and you can create once and assign to one, some, or all of your customers all at once. It's just a brilliant way to do something in a way that scales but provides that additional value.
Okay, here's a good one from Sven, who's wondering, what do you do to keep the library accurate and topical?
Great question, and super important. Not only is it important from the perspective of how do you make sure that you're not teaching old stuff, but how do you catch on to new trends? Huntress has our largest line of business is our managed EDR, which is endpoint detection response. And managed means that we have a 24/7, 365 staffed SOC that are seeing these alerts coming in from real world machines, which is 2 million computers have our software installed on them. And they drive a lot of the needs that we address through the security awareness training. As an example, they alerted us to the fact that they were all of a sudden seeing a couple of hundred successful attempts for compromising machines by running a malvertising campaign. This is what the bad actors were doing, that installed a QuickBooks plugin. And that QuickBooks plugin would pop up a message saying, call this 1-800 number because there's a problem with your QuickBooks installation. Now, just popping up that text message isn't going to do anything to trigger antivirus or EDR. What happens later is that this phone number is for a malicious like scam tech support center that tells the learners to install a rogue Screen Connect and then takes over and steals passwords, etc. So we've implemented that and came out with a malvertising episode, and we come out with new episodes every 6 weeks. We're able to do this because we have an in-house animation studio, and they are literally always talking to the SOC and to the security researchers. And we're able to push this out in a way that is quick, but with a quality that everybody really wants. One of the animators has an Emmy. Others have experience, working on major animation projects and storytelling projects. So being able to do that in-house and at a rapid fashion is really key and something that we work really hard on. Great question. Sorry if I gave too much info there. I get very excited about this stuff.
Gordon's got a question for us here, and I think it relates to something that I've been hearing, that the bad actors are asking for less so that they're more likely to get paid. Gordon wonders, for a small business, what is a typical ransom amount requested?
Oh, great question. And Howard, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one. I've seen everything from hundreds to thousands of dollars. And at this point, especially for small businesses, if they have cyber insurance, this is where it really, at this point, is far enough along of an industry where there are ransom negotiators from the insurance side that will likely step in. Howard, what are your comments on this?
Yeah, there was a big shift going back several years now. All of the ransomware was demanding tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And of course, small businesses couldn't even dream of paying that. It occurred to some of them that if they asked for less, they'd get paid more often. And so you saw the numbers start to drop, and then they dropped precipitously. And in the last presentation I did, we showed ransomware notes asking for $100, $300, and telling you how to pay it in Bitcoin. And I suspect that those who are really targeting smaller businesses, that's where they are, because it's ludicrous to expect big pockets from somebody who just doesn't have them.
Yeah. Yep. And you know what? This is now me sharing just how old I am. When the first crypto locker hit, the first piece of ransomware, it was so long ago that they requested 1 Bitcoin, which at the time cost $300. That was the first wave. And then, just like the value of Bitcoin, the ransoms kept on going up and up and up. And yeah, right now, I definitely agree that we're seeing it come back down to earth.
Well, gentlemen, it looks like that's all the time we have for this episode of Coffee Talk. Many thanks to Howard M. Cohen for an insightful presentation, and Dima Kumitz for joining us on this informative episode. And a special thanks to Huntress for sponsoring us. We could not have done it without them. Keep an eye out for our next episode and for your Starbucks gift card. It should be coming your way in the next few days. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.